Hello again. One of the things which makes me chuckle is when people suggest that those who wish Britain to withdraw from the European Union must all be little Englanders who hate foreigners and have no time for other nationalities. This is so odd that I'm not at all sure that even those who hint at such a thing really believe it. For my own part, I love Europe, and I've lived, worked in, and visited quite a few parts of the continent. Roaming around through Budapest yesterday was a positive pleasure to me. I gained great enjoyment from drinking in the sights, sounds and smells of a city where I haven't been for the better part of half a century. Budapest is almost 100% white and full of Europeans. One sees the occasional black person, but they're all tourists. They don't live in Budapest. For instance, I saw a group of 4 black women with some white people walking along and chatting. When I was within earshot, I found to my delight that they were speaking Hebrew. The women were falashas, that is to say Ethiopians whom Israel rescued and who are now thoroughly integrated into society. I shall return to this in another video shortly because I want to talk about Hungary and the Holocaust and why a lot of Israelis come to Budapest. Why are there not millions of Africans and Arabs, Bangladeshis and Pakistanis living in Budapest? How come that Paris, London and Berlin are full of such types, and yet they don't seem to find their way to Budapest? It's really very simple. The Hungarians are very happy for anybody to visit their country. They welcome tourists with open arms. How do they know who is a tourist and who an undesirable who might turn out to hang around in the country and become a nuisance and need to be supported? It's really very simple. I landed at the airport and presented my passport, which was then stamped by a customs officer. Clearly, I had paid for a flight and they could see at once what nationality I was. Suppose that I didn't have a passport. I would not have been allowed into Hungary. It is as simple as that. They would have detained me at the airport and then forced the airline with which I travelled to take me back to wherever they flew me from. Simple, no? Or let us suppose that I had a passport, but instead of landing at the airport, I arrived on foot from Serbia and showed up at the Hungarian border. Well then, they would ask me some very searching questions, because that's not at all how tourists arrive in the country. I'm staying at a nice hotel in the centre of Budapest. If I had turned up at the Hungarian border without a passport or any money, do any viewers think that the Hungarians would have welcomed me, driven me to this hotel, and told me to stay as long as I pleased at the hotel at their expense? Does that sound likely? Now compare this with what happens in Britain. People turn up at our border without passports or money, and we do indeed drive them to nice hotels and offer to pay for them to stay at those hotels for as long as they please. You see the difference here. If you wanted to enter a country when you were flat broke and be put up for free at a hotel, which would you choose, Hungary or Britain? Back in 2015, when a column of supposed refugees was marching through the Balkans and heading for Europe, they reached Hungary and expected to walk into the country. Hungary simply did what most countries in the world do, which was to ask those wishing to enter their country to show their passports and explain how they would be paying for food and accommodation while they were in Hungary. Those who could not explain themselves were refused admission to the country. When they then began trying to enter illegally, Hungary built a barrier of barbed wire and then they strengthened it over the years. I saw it yesterday and it is a formidable sight. There are regular patrols to catch anybody trying to breach the border. Part of the offence may be seen in the thumbnail to this video. This then is how Hungary manages to remain a European country full of Europeans, and why it is still a white Christian nation. I'm bound to say, though, that there is a downside to this determination to be a Christian nation, and this was seen during the Second World War. I shall look at this in a separate video because it is a troubling subject, one which is of great interest to me personally, and it ties in with what I was saying the other day about Ukrainian Nazi collaborators and the ease with which massacres were committed in Kiev and not in, say, places like Amsterdam or Paris. I'm talking here of massacres of Jews. Because the fact is that Budapest saw some pretty appalling massacres with the Arrow Cross militia in 1944. But anyway, I'll be talking about that in another video later today.